I'm sure you've heard that DJI has just released the Air 3 drone. DJI has sent out all their little announcements. The DJI ambassadors have all published their rave reviews. Now it's time for me to offer some more level-headed thoughts on what the new drone means for average drone pilots like you and me. By the way, stick around to the end. I'll let you know if I plan to get the Air 3 and if I'm going to do some videos on it. I'm not going to sit here and regurgitate all the specs. You've probably heard all that before. Instead, I want to talk about just a few of the Air 3 specs that I think are the most important changes from the Air 2S. So let's talk about the updates to the Air 3 over the Air 2S that I think are actually meaningful. The Air 3 has two cameras instead of one, a 24mm wide angle and a 70mm telephoto. This is the biggest change to the Air 3, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Both cameras on the Air 3 have a 1/1.3 inch sensor, which is smaller than the 1 inch sensor on the Air 2S. The Air 3 now has omnidirectional obstacle avoidance. It shoots 4K video at 100 frames per second, but does not shoot 5.3K video. The Air 2S shoots 4K at 60 frames per second, but also shoots 5.4K video at 30 frames per second. The Air 3 is rated better for high wind flying, it supports waypoints, and it's supposed to have flights of up to 46 minutes, which is probably more like 30 minutes. Several changes involve the controller. It uses the new RCN2 or RC2 controllers. No other drone uses these controllers. The Air 2S uses the RCN1 or RC controller, which does work with other drones. It claims a 20K range, which is nuts. Stream video is 1080 at 60 frames per second rather than 1080 at 30 frames per second. It also has an improved streaming bitrate from 15 megabits per second to 80 megabits per second. Now there are other changes, but the ones I've covered here are the most important ones to consider at this point. So what do I think about these updates? What do they mean to you? Let's talk about the cameras first. Up to now, I've never been a fan of multiple lenses on a drone for three reasons. Normally, if you want to zoom in, you can simply fly closer. So a second lens solves a problem that in most cases doesn't exist. More importantly, the sensor behind the longer lens is usually smaller than the regular lens, meaning more noise in low light and lower quality video. Worse, a second lens has historically made the drone a lot more expensive. Lower quality solves a problem that doesn't really exist and it costs you more. Sounds like the dual camera drone was designed by the government. I'm happy to acknowledge that the Air 3 has addressed my concerns about the dual camera setup. First, it uses two sensors that are the same size, so you don't sacrifice quality to use one camera over the other. Now, the Air 3 sensors are actually smaller than the Air 2S sensor. I'll talk more about that in just a minute. As far as being useful, I really don't think people will use the telephoto lens all that much unless they're doing search and rescue, roof inspections, monitoring animals from a distance, or stalking the cute girl next door. For people who do understand more about photography, the telephoto does give you a different shot than a wide-angle will. It can enhance the parallax effect, flatten the image, and potentially help you achieve some level of bokeh with talking head shots. Again, that's not a common use case for a consumer-level drone. The thing is, the Air 3 only costs $100 more than the Air 2S, which crushes my last concern about a multi-camera system. Let's be honest. If DJI released the Air 3 with all the updates that this drone has except for the second camera, no one would bat an eye if it cost $100 more. So in truth, you're really getting a second camera with a longer lens and a comparable sensor to the first camera for free. I've watched several videos on the Air 3 and I haven't heard anyone make that point. Standing ovation to DJI for pulling this off. I also like the Air 3's higher frame rate at 100 frames per second at 4K, and that's available in both cameras, by the way. One problem I had with the Air 2S was that DJI put limits and shackles on all the features. I love that the two cameras have the same specs and apparently work in all the same modes. We will see if that holds true as people other than brand ambassadors have a chance to test that out. Also, the Air 3 now has omnidirectional obstacle avoidance. Now you might think this is less important now that the drone has a telephoto lens. You don't really have to fly as close to things with the telephoto lens, so why worry about collision avoidance, right? Not really. A telephoto lens won't help you when you're flying sideways. Seriously, there's nothing wrong with having more safety features. Even the safest automobile drivers will need their airbags and seatbelts on occasion. I love this enhancement. I think DJI has done a remarkable thing, adding 360-degree obstacle avoidance on a drone that only costs $100 more. That's pretty amazing. So what else is important? The Air 3 has a longer flight time, which is always a good thing, but not earth-shattering. I like the higher frame rate in 4K and the improved bitrate on the video transmission to the controller, as long as it doesn't cause any signal glitches. We'll have to see on that one. All is not butterflies and unicorns, however. I'm really frustrated that this drone requires yet another new controller. The new RC2 does not work with anything but the Air 3. Frankly, I'd rather stick with less range and a 30 frames per second video transmission feed if I can just use the same controller on multiple drones. And to advertise that the drone will now go 20 kilometers is just absurd. It's like they're saying, hey, with the new version of OcuSync, you can thumb your nose at the law even more. Yeah, it's dumb. DJI could have saved us money by letting us use our existing controllers. I don't see much real value in whatever bells and whistles they incorporated into these new controllers. That said, at least these new controllers are fairly cheap. DJI is no longer crushing their customers with $1,000 controllers that go obsolete in a year or two. Now they're selling $400 controllers that will go obsolete in a year or two. I see that as progress. Honestly, if DJI will force us to get a new controller, at least they could give us a brighter screen on it, which they didn't. Man, I'm getting cynical. You can tell I've been watching reruns of the TV show House lately. My other beef with the Air 3 is that I don't like smaller sensors, and I don't like giving up 5.3K resolution. The sensors should be at least 1 inch to match the Air 2S, and losing 5.4K resolution probably is a sacrifice we have to make for the dual cameras. In this respect, the Air 3 is a step back from the Air 2S in an area that is very important to a drone photographer, and I don't like going backwards unless I'm flying that way. Those are my initial thoughts on the Air 3. I'm certainly not a DJI ambassador, that'll never happen, so I don't get drones sent to me ahead of time. Right now I'm learning about the Air 3 as you are. So what am I going to do about this? Well, I'm going to test it out. My Air 3 just arrived today. I plan to do a review about it and other videos as well. I don't have the Mini 3 Pro. I really don't have any plans to buy mini drones, so I can't do a comparison to the Mini 3 Pro unless someone in Dallas has one that I can borrow. If you're in Dallas and you do have one, send me a note. But I do have the Mavic 3 Classic. I've only had 2 chances to fly it, but ultimately I'll review it as well and compare the Mavic 3 Classic to the Air 3. And the Evo Lite Plus as well, since it's always fun to have something orange in your videos. Here's what you can do. Help me out with your views, your thumbs up, and your comments. Subscribe so you know when I publish again. Share the video. And if you plan to buy the Air 3, please use my affiliate link in the description below. That way you can help me recoup the cost of the drones. DJI certainly isn't giving them to me for free. And you can support getting honest, unbiased reviews instead of promotional pieces in the future. And if you use my link, I'll send my son over to wash your car. Such a deal! Stay tuned for more, and thanks for watching.